Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. So, this is one of my favorite t-shirts. The church I used to go to when I was in my 20s. I did a lot of work there in children's church, and I'll be honest, like the stuff we did for the kids was real cool. Like when we did Vacation Bible School, it was like a whole production. And we did two that were themed around like Disney and Kingdom's Heart. So there'd be like a big stage production, and the kids would go off into classrooms that were Disney themed. Like it was a whole thing. I'm not sure I'm allowed to show video from it because, music copyrights. But we had a lot of fun doing it back in the day. But this shirt, all of us who worked on it, they gave a lot of us who were on staff at the time these Kingdom Hearts shirts. So it's one of my favorite nerdy keepsakes. They also gave me a when the final Harry Potter movie came out, the End All Ends poster. It's in the closet. I don't really have a place to put it right now until other places in the house are remodeled, and then I'll frame it and put it up. But yeah, I have it's really cool when people in your life like recognize your nerdiness and celebrate it, because then like you end up with a lot of cool nerd collection over the years. Like I've got two knitted caps back there that have cat ears on them. A friend of mine who knits made those. Like I paid her for them. But like make friends. Make all the friends, and then you can have all the nerdy collection you want. But this is why you're here, so let's get into it. So this is Space Marine Adventures, and I have played this one. We've played it actually a fair number of times. And the reason I wanted to follow up talking about Heroes of Blackreach with this one is it's another easy way to get into Warhammer. We all recognize, who love the Warhammers, that the price barrier to entry and also the labor barrier, it can be a little high. I got in via the lore. The lore hooked me, and then I found out about the game. And I'll be honest, initially I wasn't into the game. I was like, that's too much work, and I don't have time for all this. So I was a reader, not a builder and a doer. But then over time, as I played the game with friends of mine and stuff, I was like, oh, well, this is cool. And then after you build your first army, whether it's a little one, a big one, whatever it is, you get kind of hooked on it, and then it just cascades from there. But you got to buy models. You got to have paints. You need snippers. You might need an airbrush. You need brushes, primer. There will be mistakes made. You'll spend all this money on, 5 little plastic figures that you had to put together yourself, and you'll finish them, put them together, and go, oh, I didn't do a good job, and then you'll want to do it again. So it can be a little labor intensive, but it's a labor of love. We do it because we enjoy it. But if you're into the lore, or if you want to start playing in the Space Marine realm, in the 40K realm, without making that huge financial or time investment, these are good options, the board games. And this one in particular is actually super fun. And if played correctly, if you don't have buddies to play Warhammer with, you can actually play this one alone. So let's talk about it. So let's open the box. The best part of opening a box. So as you can tell from the front of the box, you will be playing as a squad of Space Marines from 5 different legions. Ooh, yeah, I know. They cooperate all the time. They cooperate better when, they're not turning to chaos. But in this game, you are pro-Emperor. You are pro-Imperium, and you are fighting against the Necrons. The actual proper name of the game is Space Marine Adventures Labyrinth of the Necrons, the game of heroic action in the far future. And one thing I do love about this one is, where is it? I think it's on the back of the box, actually. Look, this is a Games Workshop branded game. The last one we looked at was a Games Workshop licensed game. So it was a company that does a really good job of creating games, did a Space Marines game. So we're actually going to play that next week, and I'll report back to you on whether or not I love it. I know I will, but you get to play as 5 different Space Marine legions. Now the figures they give you in the box don't look like this, but they're giving you an idea. I know who all of these are. Can you name that Space Marine Legion? Give me a closer look. Look. get my light out the way. Can you name the Legion? Drop down in the comments. Who are these? But those are the legions you'll play as. And what I love about these out-of-the-box setups is instant play. They're not hard to learn. So first things first, let's see what the game is about. Literature. And it will let you know what your goal is. And then my advice, just play the game. Play the game. They are written so well that you can play them and learn them as you play them. So have to make ready to read. Man, hot chocolate season when it hits. Oh, it's a good time. So here we are. Space Marine Adventures. It's story time, children. Gather around. Labyrinth of the Necrons. Da, da, da. The Necron Overlord has arisen, and he seeks to take over the galaxy. Standing between this mechanical maniac and his ultimate prize are 5 Space Marine heroes. Mighty battle brothers who have sworn to halt his evil plans. Now they must fight their way through the Overlord's labyrinth in order to defeat him once and for all. That was a little overly dramatic, but I can't help myself. Continuing, so Labyrinth of the Necrons is a cooperative game. The players win or lose together. This is really good. So cooperative games means it's the players versus the game versus the board. So whoever you're playing with, y'all are not against each other. Here's why that's really, really good. So say you got a date and you want to play one of your nerdy games with them. Look, I understand Magic the Gathering, intense. Doing a little Aeronautica might be a little much for somebody. Whipping out the D&D might not be the best move because it's complicated. But something like this, where you're in a co-op game, like, look, I love y'all, but you know how we nerds are when we love our properties. We get a little bit too intense, especially in those things that are us versus someone else. This prevents the screaming and gnashing of teeth because you will not be working against the person you're on said date with. You work together, right? It's y'all versus the board. So this is actually a really good, go to a coffee shop, play a game together. Like Pandemic is another cooperative game as well. So, that's my dirty dating advice for this video. Play the cooperative games where it's y'all versus the game, not y'all versus each other. You will get to a place where you can play games versus each other, but first, second, third date, that's not the time. The players win or lose together, and team decisions should be made collectively. You control a squad of superhuman space marine warriors who must journey through the ancient labyrinth and defeat the tyrannical robot aliens known as Necrons. Some people say Necrons, depends on where you're on the planet. Both pronunciations are acceptable here. That dwell within. Excitement and adventure await. The objective of the game, and there are 3 levels to complete, that you can choose from, each offering a different challenge. Level 1's the easiest and recommended for your first adventure, which we've played, and we've played level 2. We've not done level 3, which gets you to the Overlord. While level 3 is the hardest, where you will confront and attempt to defeat the Necron Overlord. In order to win the game, you must successfully fulfill the mission objective for each level of the labyrinth. I know, right? So let's talk about what's in the box, and then I'll do a little overview on how to play the game. I'm not an expert. Do not take this as gospel. But it's a fun, easy game that even I can explain. Don't ask me to explain one-page rules or anything else to you. I'm not that person. I'm a do it, not a explain it. Which is ironic because I am a corporate trainer, but games are those things you have to experience. Like, we have some games that we use for training that we create, but they are also designed to be done, not just bleh about it. So let's talk a little bit about what's in this box. Game boards. You will also hear these referred to as dungeons in a lot of games. It's just the game board that you play on. 1, 2, 3, and they are all reversible. So what you're seeing here on each side is These little green glowing things, these are spawn points. That is where Necrons can show up. As you go through the game, you will draw cards to see who goes. Is it the turn for the Necrons to do something? Is it the turn for the Space Marines to do something? The ultimate goal is to figure out where your Space Marines are entering this labyrinth, and then figure out where they're exiting, and then how can you navigate, like this dark space, that's a wall. How can you navigate through the Necrons to get to wherever the exit is? You don't immediately know where your entrance and exit are. You have to achieve certain actions to find out where those are, and then you will place down tiles that signify, oop, those aren't the tiles. Let me get the right pieces in my hand. I had all this organized and ready to go, and then I messed myself up somehow. And then, you know, when it's time for us to play the game, like, all the pieces are going to be out of order because of me. It's okay. I'll put it back. Here they are. So these are entrance and exits. So one of these will go at one point for where you're going to enter, and then the other one will go where you exit. And again, through the game, you will find out where those entry points are. The ultimate objective of the game is to get as many of your 5 Space Marine squad, or 4, out as possible, with as little damage as possible. These spawn points are interesting because as you go through the game, if a Necron spawns, if what you choose says, oh, they spawn on, you know, square number 5, once there's one here, if they spawn again on number 5, all of the adjacent cubes also spawn one of him after he's there. So the game gets really kind of intense really fast, because you might be entering over here and no one has spawned here, but what if this is your exit and then you get them spawning here and then they spawn all around? You got to shoot your way out, and the shooting and whether or not you hit them is literally a roll of the dice. Other great thing, this comes with your Space Marine figures. So these are like little snip grids, and you just cut them out and snap them together. They're already pre-painted. No, they are not as pretty as the ones on the box, but this will do. And then you have 4 more in the other colors, and they each have 2 heads. You can put one with a helmet on, or you can, or you can pop off his helmet and do one that's just, you know, that's backwards. Y'all can't see that. He wasn't screaming at you. Now he's screaming at you. Arr. Or you can do him unhelmed. So that's totally up to you. It's all a matter of personal preference on which way you go with that. But yeah, so you'll pick your army. When we played level 1, the game told us we had a squad of 4, so you got to pick your 4. And when you pick your 4, you will also need to choose one of these. There are 5 skill cards for your Marines that tell you what they're allowed to do on their turn. So let's say if you pick the green guys, I know who they are. Do you know who they are? The green guys, unfortunately, they don't have the greatest range or the greatest number of actions on their turn. However, they have some really cool special abilities that you can attach to them. So another deck you will get is this one. So as you're putting your little squad together, you'll want to read through their special abilities, because in most of the levels, you can pick 1 or 2 of these special abilities that coordinates with your particular Marine to attach to them that you can activate at certain moments. So even though this one doesn't have, he can only go 3 steps at a time. So that means literally 3 cubes on the board. And he only has a range of 3 cubes. So if he needs to take out a Necron, if that Necron is 4 steps away from him, he's not going to get him. And then since he only has 3 moves at a time, sometimes you're just protecting him to get him out of the labyrinth. Because, I mean, that you might have a lot of steps to take to get to the other side. But his special ability, if activated, can take out every Necron in the game. So you got to be strategic as you go through the different types of dungeons as to which one of these you're going to choose. And then also, if they happen to get wounded, you flip sides and it changes what they're allowed to do. So, and also a special one for this one. So, for instance, he can't move very far or shoot very far, but if you roll a 6 with Brother Infernus, when he attacks a Necron, every Necron in the adjacent square is killed. Which means, let me grab the game board again. So remember what I told you earlier? So in one of these little activation points, spawn points, if a Necron shows up and now they're there, if more show up next to him, whew, that's bad. But say we got our old green guy over here and he's sitting here and there's one here. So that's 1, 2, 3. He can take the shot. If he rolls a 6 and takes him out, every other one that's touching will disappear as well. So you got to be strategic about how you put your Space Marine army together, because just because they might be weaker in range and moves doesn't necessarily mean that they're worthless. But it's real hard to roll a 6 unless you're a cheater with a weighted dice. So now there's the Necrons themselves. So the higher you go in the game of 1, 2, and 3, the more fierce the Necrons you're going to face. In level 1, you're going to face the weakest ones, which are the warriors. It only takes a die roll of 3 to get rid of them. Easy peasy, unless you keep rolling 1s, which can happen. But these are the easiest. That's what you face the most in level 1. You might, in level 1, also run up against these guys. So this is the Necron Immortal. They're harder to kill. It takes a 4, a dice roll of 4. You will see them in level 1, but you'll also see them in level 2. And also in level 2, you could come up against the Necron Lynch Guard. He takes a 5 to get rid of. So you see how it starts getting complex. So they've got those spawn points. If you spawn, you know, a level 4 to get rid of, all of a sudden the game got harder. And then if you start spawning friends around him, and if you randomly pull out level 5s to get rid of instead of level 3s, the game got harder. And then once you get to the final board, level 6, it takes a 6 to get rid of this guy. It also takes a 6 to uncover your exit point as well. So it just gets really, really fun, and that adds to what we call replayability. I use that word a lot in the last video, but what replayability means is it's not a one and done. Because the board's randomized, the deck's randomized, every time you play this, you're going to get a different adventure. You're going to get a different set of circumstances that pop up, and that means that you can play the game over and over, and it will never be the same game twice. So let's talk a little bit about how the gameplay works. But first, respect the attention to detail. There's a dice for each color of legions represented. I, for one, appreciate the attention to detail. Thank you, Games Workshop. Now you're ready to play the game, and this is the deck that tells you everything that's going to happen. So now we're going to open it, and you'll see the back of the cards either have the emblem of the Necrons on them, or they have an emblem from one of the Space Marine legions that you're playing as. You will have to go through the deck every time you play and pull out the legion that is not playing. So you're playing as 4 legions at a time, so 4 represented legions. So if you're not playing as the blue guys, you got to pull the blue guys out. If you're not playing as the red guys, you got to pull the red guys out. Because as you draw this deck, that determines whose turn it is. And this is the reason that you can potentially play this game by yourself. And here's what I mean by that. So I stink at shuffling. So look, I'm just going to cut the deck in half, and we're going to call it shuffled. It's shuffled now. Look, I'll cut it in a third. There, the deck is shuffled. So now this determines the play of game. You lay this on the table and you draw. So green guys get to go first. So now that it's the green guy's turn to go first, I would take my little fella on the entrance point and decide wherever we're going in. You know, I put him on the entrance point and decide, is he going 4 steps in? Well, he's green, so he only gets 3 steps. Am I going to take him 3 steps in? Is he going to shoot somebody? Or what? No Necrons have spawned yet, so I can leave that for later on what I want to do with his turns. But I might just want to get everybody in here at first. But then you just keep drawing to see who goes next. So at random, oh, green guys get to go again. Oh, uh-oh. On that next draw, after you did your turn, it is now the turn of the Necrons. There is a deck for each level. This is the level 1 deck that says what the Necrons are going to do. You've got to shuffle this as well. It says do not open. Well, we're going to open it now. Here are the Necron cards for each level. So there's level 1, 2, and 3. Look, I'm going to cut them and pretend I'm shuffling. Other people do the shuffling in this house. It is not me. But when that Necron turn comes up, you now have to draw one of the Necron cards, and it will tell you what they're going to do. In this case, woo, until the end of this next round, the resilience of all the mortals is increased to 5. So if there are any immortal Necrons on the board, they just got harder to kill. And then also place this card face up on the board to let them know that it happened. Let's look at another example. So this is a spawning card. So if I had drawn this one, it says place a Necron minion counter on the translocation square. So that means that a Necron minion, if I'm using this board, is going to show up right here. So once he spawns there, he's not going to go anywhere. But once he spawns right here, if I randomly choose that counter again, baddies will spawn next to him. And as they spawn, you have this little random bag. And you fill it with the tokens that represent the Necrons for the level that you're playing. You don't put baddies in here for the level you're not playing. So I'd have to reach in here and pull them out. And it says on that card that it was, what were you? Yep, a Necron minion. Pull out that random counter. Here's a minion. I've now placed the minion on the square. There's a Necron there. So now I've got something that I have to get around to get to my exit. And as you play the game and go through the different decks, it will tell you when are you getting, there's more decks and stuff in here. I'm not going to go through all those because I don't have a setup to really play a tabletop game. I literally tried to film myself playing this. I simply don't have the camera set up and equipment to film like that, and it was trash. So I got rid of it. I'm like, look, I know that I'm just limping along here, but I mean, even I've got a standard for my videos, and that wasn't it. But as you keep playing, you'll just keep drawing. Oh, now it's the Necron's turn. That stinks. Oh, it's the Necron's turn again. Oh, it's still the Necron's turn. Still the Necron's turn. And then finally, okay, it's a Space Marine turn. So once you get to the end of this deck, which decides whose turn it is, you shuffle it and keep going until you get everyone out of the dungeon and you find your exit point. And until you make it through levels 1, 2, and 3. And guess what? Once you're done, flip it over, play the other side. And you have 2 more that you can do that with. And because you're drawing that random deck to determine whose turn it is, the Necron or the Space Marines, because it's the player versus the board, that means you can potentially play it on your own. How clever is that? Now, being a good nerd wife, I got the box back together. Everything is in here. All decks and cards are in order. I hope that was a good enough interview to review. I didn't interview anyone, because if I was interviewing someone in my office by myself, that would mean I needed assistance in life. But I hope that was a good enough preview of this game to get you interested. It's not expensive. You can buy a used one for $20. Is what I've seen online. But I think brand new, it's only $45. So that I can't think of a less expensive way unless you have a 3D printer or a friend who will give you an army for free. Insta Space Marine fun. So highly recommend. I enjoy it. We've not done level 3 yet. It does feel a little nail-bitey intense, especially as the Necrons keep spawning, because it feels daunting for a second. So it's like you're in the battle, and that's what you want from a battle game. You want to feel like there's stakes, and this game makes it feel like there's stakes. So yeah, highly recommend. It's a 30 to 45 minute game. Unless you're going through all the levels, then it might be 2 or 3 hours. It might take up your whole evening. And guess what? You can flip the boards over and play it again, and flip them over and play it one more time. It's great. And again, great first, second, third date game because you work together and not against each other. So, what do you think? So as usual, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.